Hey everyone, this week we're going to be comparing the Snapseed and Lightroom Mobile apps for editing photos on a smartphone. So recently I posted a short video from a trip where I went to Padley Gorge. I've been there plenty of times before. I've got loads of videos from last year where I got some shots there. It's an amazing place for photography. But on this particular trip, we'd gone to meet friends, trying my best not to be antisocial, so I didn't take my camera. But I couldn't resist just getting a few snaps with my mobile phone. So this is a Pixel 4, it's getting quite old now, but it still does the job, and I was quite pleased with some of the shots I got with it. We did get some nice light, there was no fog or anything like that, it was kind of midday, but there was some nice light which was illuminating the trees and things from one side. So this is the one that we're going to edit today. I quite like the light in this shot, coming in from the side, lighting up that tree. We've got that really nice root system at the bottom and some really nice colours and textures in the image. I would have liked a bit more foliage in the sky just to cut out some of those blank blue highlighted areas. So it's not a perfect image, but it will be fine to demonstrate these two apps. And like I said, we're going to be looking at Snapseed and Lightroom Mobile. They're both available for free, with some restrictions on the Lightroom app. I'm going to be using Android because I've got my Pixel 4, but they are available for Android and iPhone. So first up, we're going to look at Lightroom. So I should say that I have captured this image in RAW. I can get RAW images on the Pixel 4, and both of these apps will edit it in RAW. But you can also use JPEGs as well, you just won't have quite as much control. So we've got the image open here. Now the first thing I'm going to do, which I do quite often with Lightroom, is just use the auto feature. So down here on the bottom, I'm going to click that. That just gives me some quick edits and a base to start working from. So from here, I'm going to go to Light, and I'm just going to increase that slightly, just to bring up some of those shadows. Not a great deal, just to about there. And I will increase the contrast very, very slightly, just to add a little bit of drama. The highlights, I think they're okay. I might just bring them down further because I want that sky not to be too bright. It's a bit distracting from the rest of the image, so yeah, I'll just bring it down just a little bit more. So about there. The shadows, I'm going to leave those. I think they're alright for now. We can come back to them if we need to. Whites, I'll leave those, and we'll come back to blacks as well if we need to. Right, so from here, I'm going to click on colour at the bottom. So with colour, I want to go up to mix in the top right, and I like to just play around with the colours a little bit just to make it a little bit more pleasing, a little bit more how I envisioned it at the time. So it's autumn, I don't want this quite as green as it looks, so I'm going to click on the orange and I'm going to bring that down a little bit, just to around about there. And same with the yellows, I'm going to bring that down to about there. So if I just tap on that, we can see what we've got so far. Starting to bring out some of those colours in the leaves in the background there. What I want to do is bring down that sky even more, so I'm going to click on that cyan colour, and with this one I'm going to bring down the luminance slider. So I'm going to bring that down, not too much, just a little bit, and I'll probably do a little bit more with the blue slider. So I'm going to bring that one right down to around about 20, minus 20 that is. And that just helps to darken that sky, bring a bit more definition in there, and we can see more of those branches and leaves. Got a bit more contrast between the sky and those branches now. Okay, so I'll click done. The temperature I'm just going to raise a little bit. I want it to look a little bit warmer. Again, more autumnal, more yellow and orange. So bring some of those colours in with the temperature. The tint, I'll bring that up just slightly to the right. That's just going to introduce a few more purpley colours rather than green. And vibrance and saturation, I think I can leave those as they are. So next I'm going to come down to effects on the bottom. And what I want to do is really soften this image. So rather than increase the clarity and texture and things like that, I'm going to reduce it. So I'm going to come down with clarity first, quite far, round about down to there, minus 37. And I'm going to do the same with texture. Bring that down to about -25. That's started to look quite nice now. I am going to put a vignette on this, but I'll do that in a little while. I've got some more selective edits to make first. And I'm going to make those by coming across to the left and clicking on the masking button. So here we can click the blue circle with the plus sign in it, and we can start to add masks. So these are really powerful, and I should say that you don't get these with the free version. But what I'm going to do first of all is get the background selected. So the way I'm going to do this is I'm actually going to click on a brush tool, and I'm going to brush onto my foreground like this. Now you can spend more time than this than I am. I'm just doing this quickly for demonstration. What I'm also going to do to this is add another mask to this one. So I'm going to click on the little symbol, the plus and minus symbol in the bottom right down here. Click add to mask 1, and I'm going to choose linear gradient. So now I can just draw a linear gradient up there, and this will add it to that mask. So if I click back onto that mask, what I want to do now is invert this mask. So I tap it, click invert mask. Now I've got my background selected. It's not perfect, we've got some of the tree in there. I can tidy that up if I want. I can click subtract from mask, so click on the brush, just tidy that up a little bit. Like I said, you can spend more time than this. But what I'm going to do with that background selected now is just really soften the background even more to create some separation from my foreground. So I'll bring the texture down, so around about there, bring the clarity down, and what I'm going to do as well is bring the dehaze down. So that will fade out the background a bit, it'll almost create a foggy effect. So I don't want to do it too much, round about there, and that'll help to create some separation from my foreground from the tree and the bottom of the scene with the roots and things. So now I'm going to go back to masking. I just need to tick that, top right. Back to masking, click the blue plus symbol, and now I can do the same again with the brush, and I'm going to select the tree again and the foreground like this. But this time what I'm going to do is increase the clarity and texture. So you see we created an opposite effect, and that's going to create the separation between the background and the foreground. I might even increase the dehaze just slightly as well. Okay, we're getting there now. So ticking the top right, I'm going to do a linear gradient mask now, coming down from the top. Just bring down the highlights on this one. So I need to go to light. That's just going to help with the sky again, like that. And we'll maybe bring the whites down just a little bit as well. So we're starting to get a more balanced image now. We haven't got too much brightness at the top of the image compared to the bottom. And finally, I'm just going to brighten up that tree trunk just a little bit. So one more mask, brush tool just on the tree itself, maybe just that little bit there. I'm going to go to light, and I'm going to bring up the shadows like that. Okay, so starting to look pretty good. Like I said, I'm just going to go back to effects now. I'm going to put a vignette on here, so we'll bring this right down to around about -28, and we'll just change the midpoint. So if I just bring down the vignette, you can see what this is doing. It's just changing the choke, basically, how much of the surrounding area is darkened. So I'm going to put that on around about 50. I'll just bring my vignette back up to where it was, around about there. And we're just going to feather that a little bit, so it'll just soften the edges of the vignette. And one final thing I'm going to do to this is just crop it. So we go to the crop tool, and I just want to bring it in from the top left corner a little bit, because we've just got a little bit of empty space there. I just want it to cut off where the yellow leaves are, so I'm going to bring it in a little bit like that. Maybe just a bit from the bottom right, just so the tree's on a third line. Click the tick, and I think that'll do for me. So next up, we'll have a look at Snapseed. So another thing to point out is that Snapseed doesn't have an auto function like Lightroom does. So I do quite like having that just as a base to start from. It's quite quick. We can't do that in Snapseed, but we can just start adjusting all the sliders. It's not a deal breaker really. So I'm going to start off with the exposure. I'm going to bring that up to around about there, just to bring out some of the shadows. And now I'm going to click on highlights. I'm going to bring this right down to -100. If you remember, we did this in Lightroom as well. We wanted to make that sky not as bright, so it didn't have as much imbalance with the bottom part of the image. So again, come to the slider button at the bottom, and next we're going to click on shadows. Bring that up slightly, not a lot, just to around about there. And you'll notice with Snapseed, you don't actually control the slider with your finger, you just click on the image and go left and right, and that will adjust the parameter. So +9, that's fine. Next we're going to click on contrast, and we're going to bring that up to around about there. That's a little bit too much actually, maybe +15 is okay. Okay, next, structure. So this is like clarity and texture in Lightroom. And if you remember, we brought that down. So we're going to do the same here. So I'm just going to bring it down to around about -44. That's okay for now. Now next, saturation is fine. I'm not going to adjust that. The next thing I'm going to adjust is temperature. So it's worth noting that you can come down to white balance if you like, and you can adjust the white balance by clicking on these options down here. But I find you get more control by using the temperature slider. So I'm going to click on temperature, bring this up to the right until it looks about how I want it. So that's looking okay, I think. I'm going to bring the tint up as well to around about there. Okay, we're starting to get there. And what I'm going to do next is move on to the tools that are not within the raw settings, basically. So what we do is click on the tick at the bottom right, like that. And you see now it comes out of the raw editing tools. So we can quickly look at styles. These are like presets. So we can click on those if we want to. But I'm just going to click on current, and I'm going to go to tools. So in here we've got some quite powerful tools really that'll add to our developed raw image. So first of all, I'm going to go into details. So like I said, bringing down the structure within raw doesn't do a great deal, but now that we're out of the raw develop, we can bring down the structure here, and this is really going to start to soften our image. So bring it down to about -33. I'm going to click tick, back to tools. Now, one thing to note with Snapseed is that the selective tools are not as powerful as they are in Lightroom if you pay for it, because you don't get the selective tools in Lightroom unless you pay for it. But we do have this one here, so we can click on a part of the sky, such as that, and we can bring down the brightness. So that's helping with the sky again. And we can add another one by clicking the plus at the bottom. I can click up here in the sky, and again to darken that. Click the tick. So we're starting to get there with the sky now. Okay, so next I'm going to use Glamour Glow. So this will really give a ethereal, magical look to the image. You see here, what it does is really soften it. It adds some contrast, some saturation, but we can fine tune that. You've got different options down here as well, so different kind of presets if you like. I like number 3, but I'm also going to click on the slider at the bottom here and we can fine tune the different effects. So glow is okay, I quite like that amount of glow, but I'm going to bring down the saturation like that, and the warmth, I'm actually going to bring that up a little bit. Click the tick. Okay, so starting to get there now. I'm going to add a vignette to this. So tools, vignette down here, bring that down to the left, so around about -60, -62, something like that. And the interesting thing with Snapseed is that you have two parameters. You've got the inner brightness and outer brightness. So obviously we've brought the outer brightness down, but we can also bring the inner brightness up. So you can bring that up slightly. Click the tick. And finally, I'm going to use tune image up here just to adjust some of the levels. So the shadows, they're looking quite dark at the moment, so I'm going to bring some of those up to around about, not a lot, just around about there, +6. The highlights, they're still a bit too bright in the sky, so I'm going to bring those right down to around about -80. And we're going to use ambience, just bring that up. And that seems to add a bit of brightness, maybe some clarity. So I don't want too much, just around about there. And then finally, I'm just going to crop this image like I did before with Lightroom. So click crop. I don't know exactly where I did it, but it was something like that, I think. Doesn't matter too much. And then we've got the final image in Snapseed. So let's compare those two images. So I've got to say that I am fairly impressed with the Snapseed results. Considering it's a free app, it is quite powerful and you can get some good results out of it. You don't get all of the organisational tools that you do with Lightroom if you pay for it. And also you've got to remember that it will not store your changes, so it's a one-time open of an image. You open that image, you can change the parameters. It'll save it for a small amount of time if you come in and out of the app, but if you completely close the app or restart your phone, it's not going to save those parameters and you'd have to start all again. It is quite a small file size, so it's only around about 90 megabytes, which is quite good. And like I said, it will do raw editing. But the downside is that it doesn't have the auto feature that I mentioned, and you can also not do any colour edits, so you can change the temperature and the warmth and things like that, but you don't have any fine control over the hue and the saturation and luminosity and things like that that you do within Lightroom, and that's something that I do quite miss. If you pay for an Adobe package, you will get the Lightroom app. So if you've got the photography and Lightroom package or the full suite, for example, you are going to get the mobile app with it. And you've got all of the features then, such as the selective editing, the healing brush, the organisational tools. So it's really powerful and really worth it if you do pay for Adobe already. However, if you don't pay for those, you are a little bit limited, particularly with the selective editing. You are really going to miss that. And it is a huge app as well. I think on my phone, the app itself, and including all the data that it saves when I'm editing images and saving the edits for those images, it's something like 703 megabytes at the moment, so it does take up a real big amount of space on your phone, and that's worth considering. Also, I believe if you don't pay for the app, you don't actually get raw editing tools, so that's a massive disadvantage against Snapseed, which will do raw editing in the free version that you can get. So overall, I would say if you're not already paying for an Adobe product, Snapseed is the winner here, because you've got the raw editing, you've got a lot of control. With all of the other tools, you've got some really great presets as well. It doesn't take up a lot of space and it's free, so you can't complain at that really. So that's about it for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you have, just give me a thumbs up down below, it really helps my channel. If you're a regular watcher, thanks a lot, really do appreciate it as always. And if you're new to the channel and you're not yet subscribed and you'd like to do so, just click down there on the big red button. That way you'll keep up to date with everything I'm doing each and every week. There's a new video every Sunday morning at 10 AM UK time. So I hope you'll catch me next week for the next one. But until then, thanks a lot everyone, and bye for now.